Hello everybody, this is Lucy Nathanson, child therapist and founder of confidentchildren.co.uk. I hope you're all well today and thank you so much for joining us today. So today's question that I'd like to discuss with you is, should I change my child's school because they have selective mutism? And the reason why I want to discuss this with you today is because I've just jumped out of a Skype session with a parent, and this family who I've just had a Skype session with are seriously considering changing the child's school because they say that their child isn't talking at school, so perhaps they should change their child's school. And they wanted to hear my opinion on this. And the reason why I decided to discuss this with you today is because this was the topic of the Skype set, a large part of my discussion with this family today, but I discussed this same topic with a family in a Skype session yesterday. So a different family were thinking about the same thing. Should they change their child's school because their child has selective mutism? And actually, both families, the conclusion was very different. One of the families thought maybe it was best not to change the child's school, and the other family thought actually yes, let's think about this further. So that firstly, so my first message to you is that there's no right or wrong answer. In some cases, it might be an area to explore further, and in other cases, perhaps it's not a good idea. So it's really, there's not a right answer in this case. So I'd just like to open up the discussion today with you for you to have a think about whether it would be an area to explore further in your child's case or maybe not. Hello Donna and Marinda, thank you so much for joining us today. If you're here, please comment down below. I always love to know who's here with us today. So, first of all, I definitely cannot say yes or no whether it's a good idea for you to change your child's school, but let's just think about the different aspects of this. First of all, changing school can be a fresh start for a child with selective mutism. The reason why is because at this new school, no one knows that I don't talk at school. No one knows that I don't talk. And for this reason, it can be an opportunity for a child with selective mutism to go somewhere new and to almost have a new identity. So it can be a real opportunity. And you may have noticed in your child's case that with people they know, for example, extended family or people at school, they're unable to talk because they know I don't talk. It's almost like they've taken on board that that label. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of they know I don't talk and therefore I don't talk. And it's almost like they're trapped in this because of their past experience of being unable to talk to these people. However, you may also have noticed that when your child goes somewhere new, so for example, parents say if they go on holiday, then the child, some children, not all, some children are able to talk under these circumstances because they don't know I don't talk, so I can talk. So in these situations, if we think about it from this perspective, changing school might be a fresh start for these children. On the other hand, it is a risk. It is a risk. So even though a child is able to talk in some new situations, it doesn't mean that they're going to talk at their new school. Definitely, and we can't rely on this. And this family who I was having the Skype session with today, they said their child actually wants to change school, and she says, at my new school, I'll be able to talk. And I said, that's great. We will, of course, in the background, do everything we can to set her up for success, to use this to create the best situation to help her to be able to talk at this new school. But at the same time, I said to the parents, even though she's saying, I'll talk at my new school, when it comes down to it, she might not. So it might be that she has every best intention in the world and she wants to talk at this new school, but then when she's there, it's hard to actually start talking. So we can't rely on them talking at their new school. So two sides of the coin. It could potentially be a fresh start, a new opportunity for them to talk where people don't know I don't talk, but at the same time it is a risk. And even if the child wants to talk at their new school or says, I'll talk at my new school, they might not. So there are two sides to this, and we have to be really aware when making this difficult decision. It's important to really think about all of this. It's also important to weigh up the potential, in the specific child's case, important to think about what is the potential loss if we change school. So, for example, the family who I was talking to yesterday via Skype, this child, she talks to all the children in her class. She just doesn't talk to adults. So she doesn't talk to her teacher. So if she changes school, she might not be able to talk to the children in her new class, and that's a massive loss. She's actually many steps ahead in that she's now talking to friends. So do we really want to take that risk for her to not be able to talk to friends just because she doesn't talk to her teacher in this current school? So there's a big potential loss there. So in that case, maybe it's best not to take that risk. The other family who I was talking to today, their child doesn't talk to anyone at school. She doesn't talk to children and she doesn't talk to adults. So therefore, changing school, there's less of a loss. She doesn't really have friends in her current school. So maybe it's worth taking that risk. So it's good to also think about that side of things as well. What is the potential loss? Now, if we decide that yes, in this specific scenario, again, I can't make that decision for you. It's really about you thinking about your child's situation and weighing up all these different areas. It's really just about opening up this discussion and thought process. If it's decided that, yeah, I think it will be a good idea for my child to go to a new school, the most important thing is to think about whether this new school is open to the intervention that may probably need to take place for a child with selective mutism. There is no point us going from one school to another school and we just have the exact same situation. Perhaps the current school isn't open to us doing sliding in sessions or fading in sessions, parents coming in, or all the extra stuff that's needed for a child with selective mutism. And therefore, you think it's best to move to another school. But if that second school also isn't open to anything, then there's no point, really. So it's really important to explore all the options, all the potential other schools, and find a school that is receptive and open to doing the extra work that is needed to help a child with selective mutism. Have conversations with the new school. Just explain to them what is necessary and see how they respond, and that will give us insight into whether this is the right school or not. Similarly, does the new school have the resources to be able to have a key work allocated to the child and doing all the techniques and strategies? Again, if they do, then maybe that's an option. If they don't, then again, maybe it's not. It's no point moving from a school to another school. That will just be the same scenario. Will the class will there be smaller class sizes in the new school or not? Will there be smaller class sizes in the new school or not? Again, things to consider. So I would say to test the waters, if you're thinking about it, open up the conversations with the new school to find out whether they are receptive, whether they're open or not. And I've been working with children and families of children with selective mutism for over 7 years, and I've really seen all scenarios, many scenarios happen. And I've seen scenarios where, for example, a child I was working with, she was at a school that was very not open-minded, and they didn't agree to parents coming in. They wouldn't agree to any external guidance to support the child, and the child was actually regressing in her selective mutism in this school. And the mum made the decision. Actually, I've had more than one scenario like this, come to think of it. And the families made the decision to move to another school, and they really researched a school that would be open and willing and understood the commitment needed to help a child with selective mutism. And when they made that move, the child did make steps forward because the right plan was in place. So those are situations where it was right for the child to move school. Equally, I've seen other situations where the parents have decided to move school and it's been the same situation because the schools were the same as, you know, the setup was the same as in the previous school. So I guess there's a lot to think about when making this very important decision. Oh, there are a lot of you here with us right now, so please like, love, comment below. I always love to know who's here with us, and yeah, just to hear your experiences. I'm just going to have a look at the comments. So hello, Ali, you've joined us. Claire, Faye, Kelly. Faye says, hi, glad you are discussing this. I'm moving my daughter's school as she is currently in 3 form entry, so I've applied for 1 form entry, and I hope this will help her to trust more people and be able to talk. Yeah, that's really, it definitely could. Again, I wouldn't just move the child to a new school and just put them in a new school and that's it. We need to have a clear plan, meeting with, you know, a clear transition plan, meeting with the new school, deciding how it's going to work. All these small details matter, because if we just plonk them from one school to another, it's unlikely that they'll just start talking. They might, but they might not. So in order to set them up for success, it's really about having a real plan in place, how that transition can happen. And yeah, discussing it with the school and thinking about, you know, what can we do to set them up for success. And I do have an article about transition, which I've shared on my Facebook page before, and it's on my website. And that applies to, of course, moving to a new school as well. So all those tips that are in that article, I'll put it in the comment section below after this Facebook Live. All those tips apply. So ideally having a home visit from the new teacher if possible, following the fading in steps, the child visiting the new school when it's empty, ideally the school receiving some training on selective mutism. So as you may know, I have an online school training course for schools, which is core training on selective mutism. And in an ideal world, the new school would have already completed that video course ahead of meeting the child. That would be amazing, so that they have a real understanding of selective mutism and create that supportive school environment from the onset. That is just the dream, to have a school, you know, creating that really supportive school environment from the onset, and really having all the staff having an understanding of selective mutism. And in that course, I dispel the myths and you know, and help them to understand how they should interact with the child. So that's another thing. If they can receive training on selective mutism in advance, that would be wonderful. If not, if they can just watch some of the YouTube videos, is also a step in the right direction, of course. And just having a plan in place. Is a child going to have a reduced timetable at the start? All these small factors are really important to think about before day one at the new school. Okay, so Kelly says, my daughter will not talk to family or people she sees all the time, but when my son's friend came over, she went up to him and asked him to get her a bowl, please. I almost fell through the floor. I bet that was a really exciting moment, Kelly. Thank you for sharing that with us. So yeah, like you see, if it's sometimes a new face can help the child to be able to talk to that person, because there's no history of not talking to that person or in that place. Okay, Selena says, hi Selena, nice to see that you're here with us. Kelly says, do communication cards tend to help with selective mutism to take the pressure off them speaking? Now this is a complex question, Kelly, and this is something when I have my Skype sessions with families, we discuss it in quite a lot of detail, because it really depends on where that specific child is at in their talking, in that specific place with that specific person. So there's not like really a blanket answer. For some children, a communication card can help them to communicate a message if they're unable to use their voice. So it can be a great positive step forward. For other children, it might be a step back if they can use their voice with, for example, if a child, for example, can use their voice with the teaching assistant on one side of the room, away from everyone, but instead they're showing the card, then that's a step back. However, if they're not able to use their voice, then a communication card can definitely be a step forward and can be encouraged. However, we don't want to just stop there. We always want to be thinking, how can we move from the communication card to eventually using their voice. And again, that will be by implementing a small steps program. So again, as you can see, it's quite a complex answer, and it's hard for me to go into detail without knowing the specific child. And whenever we discuss this, when I have these Skype sessions with families, we discuss in detail that specific child and whether it will be useful for them or not. But I guess that if I had to give a general answer, the answer would be to that yes, they can be useful for children, but so communication cards can be useful for children, definitely, but we then want to be thinking about how can we move from that communication card to using their voice. So back to, sorry, I feel like I'm going off topic a little bit. So back to the initial question, should we move school? Should we move the child to school, the child who has selective mutism? And in a nutshell, before I finish, my summary, I suppose, is that moving school can be a fresh start for a child with selective mutism, but it's also a risk. So we can't guarantee that a child will be able to use their voice in their new school. What we can do, however, is if we decide that it is a good idea to explore this option, then it's important to find the right school, a school that is receptive to implementing the interventions needed to help a child with selective mutism. A school that's open and has the resources and the time to spend helping a child with selective mutism. So if we want to move school, it's important to find the right school. And however, it's not the right, moving school isn't always the right decision. It's really thinking about whether it's a good idea for that specific child. So I hope that this video has kind of sparked some thoughts. Of course, like I said, I can't say that yes, it's the right decision or no, it's not the right decision, because every situation is unique. Today's Skype session with a family, they concluded that yes, they will explore that further. The Skype session I had yesterday with a different family, they decided after our discussion, actually it's not right in our child's case. So it's really about thinking about your child and whether it's the right decision in their case. And yes, it can be a fresh start, but it's also a risk, and we have to put in place the best possible plan to help them to make those steps, to have the highest possible chance of talking in their new school. So I hope that was useful. Oh, hi Evelyn, I'm glad that you're here with us today as well. So lovely to see, lovely that so many of you have joined me today. Please like, love, comment below. And yeah, I hope that this discussion has just sparked some thoughts and just, you know, maybe it's helped you conclude that actually, no, it's not the right decision. Maybe on the other hand, it's helped you to, you know, spark those thoughts to explore the topic a bit further. Okay, lovely to speak to you all today, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Take care. Bye.